Hello and welcome to my channel We Learn by Sharon. I am Shraddha Vanode, Assistant Professor in Electrical Engineering Department of St. Vincent Pallotti College of Engineering and Technology, Nagpur. In this series, we are learning synchronous machines, and in today's session, we are going to concentrate on direct axis and quadrature axis synchronous reactance. If you want to understand what exactly d-axis, q-axis are, you can refer my previous video. The link is there in the description box. So let's get started. The direct axis synchronous reactance. The reactance which is acting along direct axis is called as direct axis synchronous reactance. Okay. Now this magnetic effect will be there along the axis of the rotor always, because the axis of the rotor is nothing but d axis. So we can also say that field pole axis is known as direct axis. A direct axis synchronous reactance is defined as that reactance which is offered to the armature flux, okay, and directed along the direct axis. Alright, let's try to understand it more clearly. Now for example, this is your synchronous machine, okay, and this is the salient pole rotor. As I told you in the last video that d-axis and q-axis, direct axis and quadrature axis comes into picture only when we deal with salient pole alternators and not with cylindrical pole alternators. So we are considering a salient pole rotor here, and we can see the axis of the salient pole rotor is nothing but vertical here. So the vertical axis will be d-axis. If the salient pole rotor is horizontal, then the horizontal will become d-axis. So my point is, whatever axis of the rotor is, the same will become d-axis. Okay. Now at the axis, the peak of the MMF is occurring here. This is a steady armature MMF wave, and the peak is occurring on the D-axis. Now you can see the air gap between rotor poles and this armature is minimum along the D-axis, while the perpendicular axis is nothing but Q-axis here. So you can clearly see that the air gap between the armature and the rotor is maximum here. So because of this non-uniformity of the air gap, there is the concept of this d-axis and q-axis. So under this condition, we can say that the air gap length is minimum along the d-axis while it is maximum along the q-axis. So the armature flux which is there along the d-axis will be maximum, because what is flux? Flux is ultimately mmf upon reluctance. Okay. Now the air gap is less, so the reluctance will be less. And if the reluctance will be less, obviously the flux will be more. So the armature flux is maximum along D axis. So basically when we say direct axis synchronous reactance, ultimately it has to do something with the flux linkages. So we can say the flux linkages per ampere in the armature winding is called direct axis synchronous inductance. When we say flux linkage, it is inductance. Alright. So thus the peak of the armature MMF wave coincides with the direct axis, which is D axis represented in the figure. Then the D-axis synchronous inductance LD is given by, now this is what is LD. LD is given by armature flux into the number of turns. Okay, armature flux into the number of turns per phase divided by armature phase current. And hence direct axis synchronous reactance, which is XD, will be given by twice pi f LD or omega LD. If you understood clearly the concept of d-axis, direct axis inductance as well as direct axis synchronous reactance, let's try to understand the same for quadrature axis. Now, if this is the d-axis, the perpendicular is the quadrature axis, and the peak of the steady armature MMF will lie along the q-axis for certain condition, for certain reactance. Let's try to find out that. The quadrature axis is the one whose magnetic effect is along the perpendicular to the field pole axis, when the peak of the armature MMF coincides with the quadrature axis. Now, so when it will lie on the q axis, that time the reactance which will be offered to the armature MMF will be called as quadrature axis reactance. Alright. Now, in case of salient pole machines, when the air gap is non-uniform, there is presence of two reactants, XD and XQ. Okay, and you will find XD will always be greater than XQ. What happens in cylindrical pole synchronous machine? In cylindrical pole synchronous machine, the air gap will be always uniform. In cylindrical pole synchronous machines, the air gap will be always uniform, and that is why the direct axis quadrature axis reactance does not exist there, or maybe we can say they both are equal and combinedly it is called as synchronous reactance. Hence we assume that xd and xq will be same for the cylindrical pole. But because of the presence of slots in the rotor of the cylindrical pole machine, also there is slightly difference in the xd and xq, and you will always find that xq will be always slightly lesser than xd for the cylindrical pole synchronous machines as well. But they are almost same, so we don't consider it separately. We always consider it as synchronous reactance only. When we know that there is existence of xd and xq, it's important to find out xd and xq as well. So the best method to find out or to determine the value of xg and xq for a particular salient pole alternator is slip test. Now when we say slip test, slip itself tells us the difference in the speed, because we have learned induction motors before. So we know what is slip. Slip is nothing but the difference in speed. So let's try to understand how we will find out xd and xq with the slip test. So the method which is used to determine xd and xq, that is a direct axis and quadrature axis reactance, is called as slip test. Generally, what we do in alternator is that we give field excitation as well as give mechanical energy, and accordingly we get voltage gets generated across the alternator. But what we do in slip test is we give supply to the alternator. Okay, we don't give excitation. The excitation will not be given to the field winding. The field winding will be kept open. We will give three-phase supply to the armature winding. Okay, so let's see how it will be shown in the circuit diagram. So like this, we will have the circuit diagram of the alternator. You can see the field is kept open here, and the alternator armature of the alternator is connected to three-phase supply. And the alternator is made to run nearly to the synchronous speed. Now how the alternator will be made to run? By the motor itself. Like we used to have the motor to give the mechanical energy. So the motor will be running the alternator with speed which is very near to synchronous speed, but also you are giving supply to the armature of the alternator. So what will happen is that the three-phase current which will be drawn by the armature, because we are giving a supply, so the three-phase current will be drawn by the armature, and so that three-phase current will produce its own magnetic field, and the magnetic field will be rotating in nature. The magnetic field, the flux which will be produced by the three-phase current, will rotate with a synchronous speed. Yes, it is exactly similar to the working of the induction motor. What happens in induction motor? What happens in induction motor? In induction motor also you give three-phase supply to the stator, and hence rotating magnetic field is produced because of the three-phase winding. Similar thing will happen here, because you are giving supply to the alternator, a rotating magnetic field will be produced which will be rotating with the synchronous speed. Alright, so the rotor will be rotating with some speed which is near to synchronous speed, and the rotating magnetic field will be rotating with the synchronous speed. So see, there will be always difference in the speed. The speed of the rotating magnetic field and the speed of the rotor will be different, and hence the difference between the two speed will be called as slip. Okay, so what will happen, set the speed of the motor in such a way that the speed of the motor will be slightly lesser than the synchronous speed. Okay, and hence there will be difference in this speed. So the difference in the speed is nothing but slip, which is given by ns minus n, where ns is the synchronous speed with which the rotating magnetic field is rotating, and n is the actual speed of the rotor with which we are rotating the motor, right? And the difference in the speed will what the difference in the speed will do? The difference in the speed will induce EMF in the rotor field circuit, right? The difference in the speed will induce EMF in the rotor field circuit. So what will happen when there will be rotation? The stator MMF will ally itself to D axis as well as Q axis. So when it will ally itself to the D axis, what will happen? The phi D will be there. The flux phi D per pole will be set up, and the effective reactance that will be acting on the phi D will be XT, that is direct axis synchronous reactance. And when the stator MMF will align itself along the Q axis, that will then what will happen? The flux phi q, that is the quadrature flux, will set up, and and the effective reactance which will be offered by the alternator will be xq, that is nothing but quadrature axis synchronous reactance. We know that the air gap is non-uniform. Air gap is minimum along d axis and maximum along q axis. So because the air gap is non-uniform, even the reactance which will be offered to the fluxes will be non-uniform, and it will have the cyclic nature. So accordingly, the flux will be having the cyclic nature. So because of this non-uniform air gap, the current drawn will be varying cyclically, and its frequency will be twice this slip. Okay. So the RMS current is minimum when the machine reactance is XD, and its maximum when the machine reactance is XQ. Because of the non-uniformity in the air gap, the reactance offered will vary cyclically, and hence the voltage drops will also vary cyclically. Why? Because the impedance, if the reactance is varying cyclically, the impedance will be varying cyclically. And if the impedance will be varying cyclically, the voltage drop across those impedance will be varying cyclically. And if the voltage drops will be varying cyclically, accordingly, even the terminal voltage, which includes all these voltage drops, will also vary cyclically. So when it varies cyclically, at some position it will be maximum, at some position it will be minimum. Okay. So the voltage at the terminals will be maximum when the current and other drops will be minimum. While the voltage at the terminals will be minimum when the currents and various other drops will be maximum. We are going to see all these cyclically variations in the waveforms of the currents and voltages here. So these are the waveforms of the voltage induced terminal voltage as well as current drawn by the armature. So you can see the first figure. The first figure is nothing but the voltage which is induced in the open field. See, the field is open. So the current is not flowing, but the EMF is getting induced. So this is the nature of the EMF which is getting induced. At this point it is maximum. But when voltage induced is maximum in the field circuit, at that time the second waveform is for the voltage, terminal voltage, and the third waveform is for current. So you will find when the voltage induced is maximum, at that time current is also maximum. And when the current is maximum, all the drops will be maximum. And when all the drops will be maximum, the voltage will be, terminal voltage will be minimum. And this happens along XQ, that is quadrature axis. Current is maximum, voltage is minimum. Now what will happen at XD is the current induced will be minimum, that is 0, and hence the current which is flowing, linear current in the armature, current drawn by the armature will also be minimum. And because the current drawn by the armature will be minimum, the drops will be minimum, and because all the drops will be minimum, the terminal voltage will be maximum. And this is what happens along the d-axis when it is along the direct axis, and current will be always minimum, voltage will be always maximum. So this is what happens. This is the waveform of the slip test you need to draw when it is asked as a theory question as well as in the lab also. So what we observed in the waveform is one more thing. When the rotor field is aligned with the armature MMF, that is we are talking about the d-axis. When the d-axis is aligned with the armature MMF, at the time flux linkages are maximum, but the rate of change of flux is minimum. And that is why the EMF induced is minimum. And at this instant, we can say the alternator offers the reactance XD, that is direct axis synchronous reactance. While when we talk about the position where the rate of change of flux associated with the rotor is maximum, that there the voltage induced in the field goes through its maximum. Even the voltage induced in the field is maximum, and the position at the position where you are getting maximum voltage induced in the field circuit, that is along the quadrature axis, and the reactance offered to the alternator at that time is called as XQ, that is quadrature axis synchronous reactance. And hence these two parameters are given by XD will be equals to maximum voltage by minimum current, and XQ will be equals to minimum voltage by maximum current. Don't forget to take the phase quantities, but you just need to remember XD is maximum voltage by minimum current, and XQ is minimum voltage by maximum current. So you will always find that XD will be greater than XQ. Alright, because XD is maximum voltage by minimum current, so XD will be always greater than XQ. So how you will get this maximum voltage, maximum current, minimum voltage, minimum current is when you perform this practical and you will connect a voltmeter and ammeter. So because of the slipping nature, the ammeters and voltmeters will show vibrations. The pointer will show vibration. So the pointer will vibrate from the minimum position of the voltage to the maximum position of the voltage continuously. And similarly the current also. The pointer of the ammeter will vibrate along the minimum value between the minimum value and maximum value of the current. And hence you can note down the minimum and maximum value of the currents and voltages. Once you note down those values, with the help of this formulas, you can easily find out the value of xt and xq. I hope this thing is clear to you. So in today's session, we have covered about the direct axis synchronous reactance and quadrature axis synchronous reactance. Also, the laboratory setup to find out these values with the help of slip test. Things are clear to you? Give it a thumbs up. Share it with your friends so that they can also clear their concept about the same. Subscribe to my channel if you have not yet so that you don't miss any of the upcoming videos on the synchronous machines, and press the bell button right next to it to get the notification as soon as I upload my videos. Thank you and happy learning.